Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Job Hunter podcast with your host Tim French. We are no strangers here to speaking to some of the most interesting guests from the world of sports. And this week we have a real treat for you as we'll be looking into one of the newest technologies about to take the world of top flight football by storm. So let's not waste any time and jump into this week's video. Hello and welcome to the Job Hunter podcast, the show that takes the hassle out of the job search by finding you some of the most interesting professions from around the UK. This week is no exception as we uncover some of the exciting tech that is set to revolutionise professional football. So without further ado, let's welcome Mel O'Connor and Jack Woodburn to the Job Hunter podcast to tell us more about Okkulo. But before we get into asking the difficult questions about Okkulo, why don't you kick us off, Mel and Jack, by giving us a bit of a background on yourselves, how your careers have evolved over the years, and where did it all start? Mel, why don't you kick us off?
Hi, Tim. It's good to be on. It all started about 20 years ago. There was a piece of work that I saw from a scientist in Vancouver about how the visual system is delayed. That's all it was. My background is film and television, and I was looking at how light works through a lens and how the eyes work, and I just stumbled upon it. And at the time I was playing for Berkeley Town, and I thought, well, if the visual system is delayed, what if we threw a ball in the mix, whether a baseball or a football? And that's all it was. That kick started that off, and then that started 20 years of research into. While I'm having a career, by the way, there was a full-on film career in the mix there, but it set us off on the path of understanding how we could improve elite level athletes, and this. Stumbling upon this science has since shown that we really can change an athlete biologically and make them better able to perform. So it started off many moons ago. It's built over the last 20 years and culminating in where we are now. Speaking to the top level football clubs, baseball clubs.
Jack?
Yeah, so mine's a slightly different story. I was basically academy footballer and then went into kind of starting to move towards pro game. Used to play for Burton Albion, played around a couple of other places, played for Leicester for a little bit, and then went over to America. Had quite a severe knee injury, which is very cliche, I know, but I pretty much completely mangled my knee, and just went on a different path. And I went into sports science, came up to uni in Newcastle. Started working around my coaching, got a couple of coaching badges, and started working for Newcastle United, working for their foundation, coaching goalkeepers. Came about Okkulo by, quite weirdly, quite a strange one actually. Mel invited us in to come and just try it out. It was just as Mel was kind of getting in the R&D stage, just trying it out, testing Okkulo with goalkeepers. So I brought some of the goalkeepers in and was like, "This is class." I had a go. Mel thought I was all right.
Very good.
And then me and Mel just stayed in contact. And when I graduated from uni, Mel just asked us along and said, like, "Do you want to be part of the team? Come and give us a hand." Because obviously my degree's in sports science. So what fitting in with the sports tech, goalkeeping, pretty much spot on, really.
So that's really interesting. Before we get into Okkulo, I'd really just love to hear your thoughts on, you come from very different backgrounds, but end up in this common place of sports science, in the sense of, Mel, you said you come from a film and TV background, and Jack, you've obviously been down the professional sports side of it. I see some parallels between your experiences to those kind of men and women that leave the armed forces at they get to the end of their careers, because you've got very one focused vision, at least I see from your side, Jack. How has that transition kind of into the world of more regular and not say mundane, but the world of work that isn't professional sport? And Mel, how did you make that transition from a more creative arts career into a more technical, scientific based career?
Yeah, I'll let you start, Jack. Is that all right?
Yeah, no, that's fine. For me, it's not at all like that. I've going from my kind of background in sport and background in football, coming into a job like this is what I do and who I work with and people like that is very similar to who I'd be working with before. So it's still working with the footballers, still working with the same kind of people that I'm used to being around and used to kind of spending my time with. So for me, I found it quite easy to transfer into it. Yes, it's on a different side and it's a more sports sciencey based side and it's more data and more me not performing, but me working on how to improve people. But it's still the same. I still have the same banter and it's still the same kind of enjoyment and the same crack that I have with the players when I was playing with them to when now I'm working with them on the opposite side. So for me, it's been quite an easy transfer.
It has. And I think for me as well, working in the film and television industry, the two similar industries in one respect. There's a lot of pressure in there. We're in the public eye at times, and the one behind the camera. There's still similar in ways, and there is a door into that world. And I've worked with footballers throughout those 20 years. But the creative side is. Okkulo wouldn't be here without that creative side, and I needed that. I've looked at something from a completely different angle from that creative side, and it needed that to bring to football. So I think that side has helped, but it's been up to me to build that network, and I'm doing that with the likes of Jack's from that world, and I've surrounded myself with people from football, and it was very evident early on that just like film, it's quite hard to get into. You need somebody. It's better to have somebody who's there, or you work your way and you work hard and get there. We've just worked. We've had that network, but we're also working hard to get there. So we're doing it from both angles. So although not totally seamless, it seems quite seamless in one way. So yeah.
So you guys would say you're big advocates for just kind of jumping in at the deep end and seeing if you swim kind of thing in terms of trying something new and approaching something a bit different. I'm always a big advocate of pushing yourself anyway. So we knew I certainly knew when I come up with the Okkulo that it was going to be quite difficult, and I had to really work at it and really just push myself in so many different ways. And I'm sure likewise for Jack, every day is different, and we don't know what we're going to what's going to happen on those days. But certainly I'm very positive and headstrong with that. And
I think that's the thing, isn't it, Mel? Like, both where we've come from, you're always in at the deep end anyway. You don't know what you're going to turn up to at work. When I was turning up to training, I don't know how I was going to perform. I didn't know anything like that. I presume that's the same with you, Mel, when you were turning up to like filming and stuff. You didn't know how everything was going to go. You didn't know what you needed to do, blah, 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 or more of a structure than I maybe had. But it's always in at the deep end, and you just learn to cope. Especially, I know for me, especially being in that world, you have to just cope. And you have to deal with it. One day you might be in with the first team as a 15-year-old lad, and you're like, "Oh, okay, this is a bit different, but it's just what you've got to do."
I was just more structured in. Sorry, Timmy. I was just more structured in. I mean, all filming is to have a call sheet, the time regiment. This is when they're coming in. This is when the actors are coming in. But in and amongst that, in the scenes, anything can happen. And I used to love the fact if somebody would say, "Oh, Mel, there's a problem," I'd get that excited. And I go, right, okay, there's always something you can do, and I thrive on that. That's definitely where I look at. So yeah.
So we've thrown around this word Okkulo, Okkulo, but in simplistic terms, what exactly is it, and why do you think it's going to revolutionise football?
Okkulo. It's a training system that like no other, and the reason being we're using the eyes, we're using behind the eyes to the brain to the motor system, and it's something that's really nobody's really touched upon. We've opened a door for definite. What Okkulo does do is it changes the perception of the athlete, and it changes the movement to be more economical, so it's the best they can become. And that's happening behind the eyes, and it's a biological process that happens naturally. So we don't do anything different. We change the environment ever so slightly, but we don't change what the athletes do, and that's vital. We don't put anything on them. We don't do anything. We just change the environment, and then they do their job. So I think where Okkulo is really revolutionising everything is it does something very quickly, and it does it without them knowing. But what they do, they really enjoy it as well, which is a huge byproduct of what we're doing. So we've opened up a can of worms, and we want to be there and stay at the forefront. And there's many more systems to come from Okkulo. We've only just started.
So in terms of football, I mean, is the main use case for goalkeeping in the sense of improving reactions there, and how has it been so far in terms of getting it out into the market, and what's the feedback been so far?
It's not just for goalkeeping, and although we put out a lot of footage from the goalkeeping, it's just that's been the easiest way to show the performance improvement. But it's designed for any athlete. It makes them more economical. It doesn't matter whether you're a goalkeeper or an outfield player. There's a Premier League team that we're speaking to that are looking at that solely for outfielders initially. So no, it's designed for any athlete, be that tennis, football, baseball, UFC. We're working with UFC fighters. It's hard to get to the market. It's been really difficult. We've been bringing out a product in COVID. I've had this system in my mind and in the R&D for 20 years in total, and I bring it out in a pandemic, which has been quite difficult. But at the same time, we've had a lot of time to make people look at us and see what we're doing. So it has been hard initially to bring it to market, but all the clubs seem really receptive, and we're just seeing that coming to fruition now.
Fantastic. Question for you, Jack. So I liked you a little bit where the whole purpose of this podcast is to be the virtual careers fair. So imagine you're in a big sports hall and you're at one stand, you're the Okkulo stand at the careers fair. But within that, what I love to do as well is to almost do a virtual, work experience day. Imagine I have just turned up. I'm your Okkulo intern. Okay. What are you going to put me to task for one day? And what does kind of a normal day at Okkulo look like?
There isn't a normal day at Okkulo. That is the simplest way to say it. There isn't a normal day in Okkulo. Every day is different, and that's why it's so enjoyable. As Mel said, we work with so many different people. We work with baseballers, we work with UFC fighters, we work with footballers, we can work with different people in different sports and we've been speaking to racing car drivers just for little things and different like reaction stuff. There's so many different uses that every single day that we turn up, there's always going to be something different. Granted, the goalkeeping side is my background. I enjoy that. And I help with a little bit of the coaching and stuff with that. But I find it so interesting seeing the differences between different sports, but also how every single sport interlinks. There were so many things that we realized with the UFC fighters that the movements and stuff are so similar to goalkeeping that before this, I would have never have had any idea on that. So in short, there isn't really a normal day at Okkulo. It would, depending on the day, depending on who's coming in, that's how the intern we'd work it through like that.
Well, there you go. Every day is a new and different and interesting experience. So no doubt, I'm sure down the line you'll have people that might be interested in working for you guys. That kind of leads me onto my next point, really, and again, kind of for both of you, but. Britain is well renowned even for its sports science and its sports technology. We have companies that work with British cycling and athletics and swimming and improving those sports. But if you're someone who's just starting out, imagine you've just finished university, you've done a sports science, sports engineering degree. How do you get that foot in the door? Where do you start with something like that? You've got an interest in sport. But you have no idea where to start.
For me, sport is a very, very strange industry to get into. Imagine it's like every industry where it's who you know, but not what you know. But especially in sport, there is just get your name out there, network, go and meet people, go and see people. If you just email, pester people, because that's how you get into sport. I was lucky coming out of the footballing background. I did know people. I know people. I'd met people like Mel and stuff like that through being in sport. To get into sport is a very difficult task. So just pester people, ask if you can come and watch, even just come and shadow. It doesn't have to just volunteer and say, look, I know it's probably not going to be paid. I know it's probably not going to be a long period of time, but can I come and just watch how you work? Even if it's for a couple of days, it's someone that you can then call up at a later date and go, look, I need help. Do you know anyone for how to get into this line of work? And there will 100% there will be someone that either, for example, me or Mel will know, or someone that we know who will know someone else, and then the network just expands. That is the easiest way to get into it.
I think that I'm looking at it from a different angle for Okkulo and how we work. I've designed this system, and I'm the inventor, so I'm looking to bring these people on. But my background in the film industry is, like Jack was saying, like sport is notoriously hard to get into. Like filming was. So what I did, I made myself when I got the first job. I thought, right, I'll just work the hardest. I work the hardest here, and I always will. And that's the first and foremost thing that I will do. So I guess, and that I didn't stop working for my first day. I don't even think I got an interview. It was just always word of mouth, and you went and did that and got a job, and it was a 20-year strong career. And so yeah, I think for me initially is getting your foot in the door somehow, however way that is, and then when you're in there, make sure that I don't close it on you.
Fantastic. And yeah, I think reiterating your point about just kind of getting stuck in, do you think it's beneficial to even look at the grassroots level of a lot of these sports and really start at the bottom of the pyramid, so to speak, and make those connections that way?
Definitely, yeah. All the way through sport, people will be linked, whether that be from grassroots all the way through. There is going to be a link, and I know it. I know now when I speak to, like, the amount of goalkeeper coaches that we spoke to, or players that we spoke to, who I like. Obviously, they up here at Hartlepool, for example, or other places around this area, and they'll know people from home, like where I'm from in Nottingham, and it's like, oh wow, this world's so small.
Yeah.
Like, and I'll speak to people that I know from my playing days who coach me, who then know goalkeeper coaches up here in Newcastle, and I just go, wow, like it's 3-4 hours apart, but they still know each other. So I think from grassroots all the way through, there will be links, definitely.
Yeah, sport is sport, Jack, isn't it? Football is football.
Yeah.
We've noticed that our networks, we have people from the Premier League down to the lower leagues, and yeah, I think it's all one and the same, really. It doesn't matter where you start.
Yeah, I think I think there's a very, very good point to be made that you can't turn down an opportunity, can you? You've just got to embrace everything with open arms. Speaking of open arms, this episode is probably going to air in like September, October time. But as we record it now, there's been some very, very important sporting events occurring over the last couple of weeks, mainly being the Euros. And as Jack, you are a resident goalkeeper extraordinaire, this question is probably a bit more directed to you. And it's not focusing on the actual event of the European Cup final, anything like that. It's more what do you think is the mindset of the keeper when they're in those kind of high pressure situations like a penalty shootout? And how do you control your emotions in those situations? And is there anything particular that goalkeepers do, and maybe potentially that people can do in high pressure situations? Because I suppose it's not just taking penalties that people might experience high pressure. Is there things that people can do to kind of help calm themselves in those situations?
Do you know what? As a goalkeeper, there's such a variant on how you deal with different pressure. I've always been quite relaxed. And it sounds quite bad, but you've just got to be, when you step onto the pitch, you've just got to think you're the best. That you just have to believe in yourself. And that's how I've always dealt with everything. As soon as I'm on that pitch, I'm now in the zone, and that's me. And I know when I step off, I go, wow, okay, yeah, probably I'm not, but you just have to believe in everything you do. Other people that I know are very they advocate, very big advocates for self-talk, and just telling themselves that, even if they've made a mistake or something, they'll speak to themselves and they'll actually have a conversation with themselves. And it's a massive help to turn around to yourself and just say, look, relax, it's all right, it's fine, we'll crack on, we'll go again. Jordan Pickford, I know we're not talking about the Euros and stuff, but I know he's very much like that, where he'll turn around and he'll just take himself away and go, look, it's fine, we'll go again. And it's just learning how you deal with pressure and just using that. As soon as you know how to deal with your pressure, and pressure, whether that be put on you from outside or whether it's pressure you put on yourself, it's learning to deal with it and just finding your own little ways just to go, okay, that's happened, now we move on. Or, okay, yeah, I do feel a bit stressed, but I know I can do it. I'll just force myself through and just keep ticking over. I think that's the simplest way. You've just got to learn yourself, and kind of learn how you deal with certain situations. Yeah.
Mel, you got anything to add on that?
I think Jordan Pickford was very vocal about that when he was in goal, wasn't he? Telling himself and telling the world,
Yeah.
no problem, it's no problem. And do you know what he was? He was in the zone. He was absolutely fantastic through that tournament. An absolute credit. And what I would add to that is it's all in the prep as well, and the work that you do beforehand, and getting yourself geared ready for that game. Southgate obviously has done a fantastic job of getting those players and getting the best out of them. So yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I was going to say, yeah, preparation. I suppose normalizing pressure, you know, and seeing it regularly. I suppose you kind of desensitize yourself to the big occasion. You're just there to do the job you've been asked to do, kind of thing, isn't it?
It is, and you know that, and that's exactly what Okkulo does. We try to make it. We make the hard work in Okkulo to make it easier during the game, and that's what Okkulo is, and that's what we'll always work towards. So absolutely, you'll get the best out of the game if you do all the work beforehand.
That's the thing, isn't it? If you prep if you prep and train harder than you need to play in a game, you go into the game, you find everything easy. And as Mel said, that's exactly what we do at Okkulo.
Yeah, we do it biologically. That happens. We make the body work much harder. Pretty much every part of the body, from the visual system to the motor system, and it makes the game easier. Vaclav Hladicki, the goalkeeper from Salford, he said that he didn't fear the ball anymore. He wasn't scared anymore because he had the quicker movement, and he did. And we showed that through the stats, but also the game slowed down for him because his perception was better. So for him, we really worked him, and it was clear in all of the match day data.
So what is your aspirations for Okkulo long term? You know, if we were to do a 10-year projection of where you see this going, you know, what is your vision for, you know, the system itself? Are you wanting this in every single football club in the country and whatever? I mean, I'm not trying to put ideas in your head, but give us a flavour of where you would see Okkulo going, and what would be kind of a good outcome for you.
Oh yeah, honestly, you'll not be putting any ideas in my head. We know exactly where we're going. We know exactly what we want to do. We'll start off. We're starting off in the Premier League. We're starting off with elite level sport. We're starting off with football and baseball. It's very clear we've been gearing towards this, and that's the strategy. Football in England in the Premier League, and then work down, and then baseball, and expand into the other sports in the US, who are very receptive to Okkulo and sport and tech, and we're going to grow the company over there. And I think in the 10-year projection, we start off with these clubs, but there's so many more sports. Anything with hand-eye coordination, our foot-eye coordination, we know what they are. We've identified them, and we're going to push towards them. And then we'll make sure that Okkulo is available to all of these elite clubs down to grassroots, and that's the plan going forward. We have other systems that we're going to push out that we know, and that is going to extend what Okkulo is to everybody, even to the general public. There's something there for the schools, gyms, you name it. We want Okkulo in every household. There's something there for everybody, and what we're doing is opening this can of worms. But it's there's so much to come from Okkulo. It's exciting.
Yeah.
So I know you talked a lot about Okkulo. Obviously, you are the owners, founders, and you know you use Okkulo every day. But if we could speculate a little bit, do you think what do you think could be the next big tech breakthrough in sport? You know, aside from Okkulo, what do you think is like the real focus for professional sports at the moment? I know a lot is done into statistics, and you know, obviously, previous guests we've had is all working in ball tracking and the Hawkeye system. But do you think there is an untapped potential in another technology, maybe?
I think I'll just jump in there, Jack. Just there's a couple of things really. I think first off, the NFTs are going to be huge in the way that's working with the digital footage, or however you use those NFTs. That we're looking at that now as well to get into. We have a lot of footage and things that we could potentially sell digitally and work into that. Be that a kind of a VR system in an animation that people can play to get credits for other games. You know, there's a lot of ways, but NFTs, we can see that exploding in it, and it's doing that already. And I think Arsene Wenger hit the nail on the head. It's behind the eyes. So what is that technology? What is that going to be other than Okkulo? But that's definitely the way forward. We're peaking. Physically
we peaked. Yeah, physically we peaked. We can't improve anymore. Like we've seen with world records and things being broken recently. For example, Usain Bolt. We will never ever get close to that again physically, because we are at the limit. We need to find a way that we can, whether that be visually or whether there's other ways in the brain, because the brain's so untapped. There's so much that we don't really know what's going on in the brain, that we can get into and work out how can we improve someone physically without improving them physically, if you know what I mean. Yes, we're doing it behind the eyes, but is there another way in which you can, whether that's reaction off a sound or something like that, for taking away from the vision, that then goes into your swimming, your athletics and things like that, where if you can speed up a reaction time off a sound, that's again more and more ways we can push the body.
Do you think as well, biometrics will be a big technology in terms of being able to receive data straight from the body in more ways than just kind of heartbeat and those kind of metrics, and how you utilize that technology as it gets more apparent within the sports science and community?
We're very much improving. So on, for example, like loading on players and loading throughout the day, I know sports scientists are getting there, and we pretty much know when someone's going to pull up or how close someone is to burnout and stuff. But there's still so many things that we don't know. If the biometrics can improve to where we know two muscle tears and muscle strains and stuff, where we can see them coming way before, we can reduce injuries as well. That's going to be a massive thing. So yeah, biometrics is massive.
Fantastic. So let's take a little break from the hard topics of discussing Okkulo to bring it a bit further back for Tim's 3 tips, the segment of the show that tries to ask our esteemed guests, such as yourself, to give some little tidbits that our listeners can take away. Mel, you are an inventor. You have invented the Okkulo system, and I'm sure, Jack, you can have some input on this too. But what 3 tips could you give any of our budding inventors or creators that might be listening that have a really good idea, but they don't really know how to translate that into a product or a business? What advice would you give them in 3 simple tips?
I think, first of all, if you have that idea, if I was always told, if that idea keeps shining, stick with it. So the first thing is once you've got that idea, really work at it. If you believe that it's good enough, don't expect anybody else to invent it. Don't think that somebody else has done it. Push it. Really go for it. So really work with that idea. The second one I would say is I think, again, we're always getting this. It's this hard work and understanding that there's going to be. It's not going to be easy. It isn't. It's difficult. Especially for us, we're creating a product that's brand new. You've got to get that product out into everybody's minds and show them that this is the way forward. So there's a lot of hard work in doing that. And I think the third one is build up a really strong team to execute that hard work and that idea. The team is absolutely vital, and certainly my strength is putting those people in the right places and actually making that grow. I have no ego. I don't have an ego, and it's not about me. It's about the product and making sure that people get the product and get Okkulo. So it's third one would be is really getting the right people around you to execute.
Fantastic. Jack, you got anything to add on that?
I think for me, it's don't let setbacks stop you. I think that's a massive thing for me. With everything that happened with my career and my knee and everything like that, I could have so easily just turned around and gone, oh, well, I'm done. I'm not. What's the point in going to uni? Let's just go and do something. But just take everything as it comes. Everything happens for a reason. That's what I always say. And yes, if say there is a setback and you go, oh, that's not gone quite how I want it to, there'll be a reason for it. And whether that be there's something later down the line which is going to kick you on and spur you on, and you go, okay, now I can see why it's happened, or it's there to kind of see how driven you are. But there's always a reason for it. And for me, I fell into this job meeting Mel very on the off chance, really. But looking back at it, going to uni after the injury and stuff and not stopping is the only reason I'm where I am now.
I think those are some very, very wise words. We're getting kind of towards the end of our episode today. I've got a couple more questions. So first and foremost, what has got you the most excited at the moment? What have you both most kind of, really getting up out? What makes you get up out of bed at the moment? Let's say that.
I think, I've always known what I've had. We've done a lot of research into Okkulo, and so we've always known that we've got something really special. For me, when I was going through the data, we did the work with Manchester Metropolitan University, with a Premier League R&D team, and Salford City. And Hartlepool. And I think when I was going through the data, I knew I was going to get really good data from match day performance, and I was excited to get that. I let out a bit of a primal scream actually when we were going through it, and it wasn't marginal. And we always say this now. We don't talk about marginal. The gains are significant. We're talking about 64% and 45% improvement in goals conceded. Our goalkeepers keep more clean sheets. And so that to me compounds what we have. But then every day, like Jack was saying before, every day is different. We have so many opportunities and so many sports to bring into. We're changing the way that people look at sports training, and that's super exciting. We're going to make a difference. And so every day I get up going, right, what can we do? What can we do to just push this forward? So to me, it's exciting, the unknown, but also knowing what we can do.
I think that's it for me. It's being involved in something that I love so much in football and goalkeeping especially, and knowing how much of a difference we can make, and then meeting people that are such big players and everything like that, and knowing that we can still improve them is phenomenal, really. And then even for me, getting and meeting other people that on other sports that I'd never ever meet. For example, the UFC, I would never have got anywhere near meeting a UFC fighter if say I'd still been playing or anything like that. But just the diversity of sports that we work with, and the different people and the different training methods and different ways that I can use a sports science degree, for me, I'm still learning every day. And it's massive for me to meet other people and meet other sports and meet other sporting athletes and go, oh, okay, right, this is how you train, and just pick bits from each sport and different people that I meet.
I know we pinch ourselves. We're not naming names or anything like that, but we do. Most days we'll say, "Can you believe we're doing this?" It's amazing, isn't it? We love what we do, and I couldn't do it as a footballer. We couldn't do it for different reasons. I couldn't do it because I wasn't very good, and Jack got injured. So we can make a difference in other ways, and that's really exciting.
Fantastic. I was going to ask you if you had any regrets, but I feel like that's a very daft question, because by the sounds of it, it doesn't really sound like you've got any regrets in terms of this venture. So we'll gloss over that question and we'll go straight into the final question, which is, what would you say are the two most important aspects to consider in your career when you're just starting out? As some of our listeners might be, young graduates who don't know where their life is going, but what would you say are the two most important things to consider?
Great. Can I start with that, Jack? Is that all right?
Yeah.
I think first and foremost is I always thought there's never a stupid question. And I hear this before they go, I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask a stupid question. There's never anything like that. So first, when you get there, ask and you'll learn every day. There's so many mistakes. I've made so many mistakes throughout my film career, and some you'll see on TV. There's certain things there that I can see that maybe people can't see, but we might have hidden it somewhere, or there's big mistakes, and ours were quite in the public eye. But learn from those mistakes, and you will. But ask any question, and it always goes down to, for me, always started with hard work. Just put in the hours, put in the time, and you'll get out what you put into it. It really is that simple. Those two things: work hard and people will want you to work for them. And I would say, you know, like I have a very positive outlook on everything. You know, I do that, and that does help me. I'm everything's always the glass is half full, and I think that's definitely got me that way as well. But it is initially the hard work and and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Always be positive, be happy, be nice to people. You will never understand how far you can get on just being nice to people and just being friendly and speaking to people in a nice way. It gets you so far, and just being trusting and being anything like that. But also trust yourself, just back yourself. If you're going to do something, do it. Don't kind of hold back and go, oh, it might not work, it might not do this. Try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. On to the next thing. You've just got to try everything. Because if you try something, or if you don't try something, you don't know where you're going to, it might turn out to be an Okkulo, for example.
Look, Mel, Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure, not only to talk to you today, but to get to know you both over the last couple of months. Thank you so much for having me in. I actually got to try out the Okkulo system a couple of months ago, and it was fantastic in my experience. I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes and keeping in touch and seeing what happens. But before we do go, where can our listeners and anyone else find out more about Okkulo, yourselves, or maybe they're interested in keeping up to date with what's going on in the world of Okkulo? Where can they find that?
First, before I answer that, you were brilliant in Okkulo when we put you in, and that video that we took, that 2-minute video, I've been using on LinkedIn. It was and it's fantastic, and still one of my best 2 minutes. And I know Jack's laughing. It was brilliant to see what you did, and just to see that you just trust Okkulo for it to do what it does. You were amazing. To find us, it's okkulo.com. And official Okkulo on Instagram, LinkedIn. It's I use Mel O'Connor, or I use the official Okkulo LinkedIn page.
Brilliant. So have a lovely rest of the year. Keep in touch, and look forward to seeing more of Okkulo on every sport ever, I think is the world domination plan, isn't it? Thank you so much to Jack and Mel for coming on and chatting to me all about Okkulo. I want to wish them massive good luck as they take their product stateside to go and work with the world of Major League Baseball. If you've enjoyed the video this week, why not give it a like and check out some of the other videos on our channel, and maybe even subscribe if you're enjoying the content. If you want to follow us on social, it's at Job Hunter Pod wherever you get your fix, or you can find us on LinkedIn, the Job Hunter Podcast too. If you want to get in touch, just drop us an email. It's at jobhunterpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching, and tune in next time for another edition of the Job Hunter Podcast.